Hey everybody, thanks for coming. My name's Chris Dias. I'm a principal program manager on the VS Code team. So we got a 20-minute sort of session here. I asked this earlier. Did anybody go to the breakout session yesterday on VS Code? Nobody. Good. So nothing will be duplicate. That's awesome. I tried to change it up even if some people came. But to be really clear, we're talking about tips and tricks of Visual Studio Code, not Visual Studio. So if you want to see Visual Studio stuff, this is not it, and it's okay to leave. Awesome. All right. Let's see. And that's it. That's all the slides I'm going to show. We're going to try to do demos for the rest of this. And of course, the first trick that I'm going to do is actually, nobody does PowerPoint anymore. We do Markdown. We do Markdown everywhere. So one of the things that I've got installed here, wow, that's really loud. One of the things I have installed here is an extension. It's called Reveal.js. And what it lets you do is write Markdown and then present it as a slide deck right inside VS Code in an editor preview window. So we've got VS Code tips and tricks. We can see themes in here. So I can click on sky, simple, blood, nut. Woo, geez, solarized. That one's huge. Let's go back here. We need a nice one. League. That one looks nice. So what are we going to see today? I'm going to talk a little bit about setup and our insiders build and what you can configure there. We're going to configure the workspace to set up some themes, and then we're going to do some workspace-based themes, which are very cool to do. We'll do a little bit of key binding, right? Customize your environment so that it works for you. And in the editing section, we're going to talk about some of the cool things that are provided by TypeScript and JavaScript, and also Emmet. Does anybody here use Emmet? Are you an Emmet expert? All right, you. You're going to have to come up and do part of the Emmet demo because it's magical when you do Emmet. I'll call you up here. Debugging, so we'll talk a little bit about configuring the environment to do debugging and how you can do things in order so that if you want to build your app before you run the debugger, you can do that. Under source code control, we're going to have some fun with a diff view, and we'll configure Git to use VS Code as your editor. In the terminal, we'll look at some of the interesting commands, like how to not stop VS Code when you have running sessions in the terminal that will bog down your machine. And finally, we're going to create an extension for VS Code in about 30 seconds. So with that, let's get going since we only have 20 minutes. Okay, first things first, setup. I'm using something called there's my Emmet cheat sheet already. I'm using something called the insiders build. Does anybody here use the insiders build? Nobody uses insiders. All right, you should go and use insiders. It's a very cool thing. If you come up here on the main page and you click on the download button, which gives you what we call the stable version of VS Code, there's a link down here to something called the insiders build. And the insiders build comes out generally every day. It's the exact same build that we use to develop VS Code. And so there's rarely a blocking issue, because if we find a blocking issue, basically we're blocked by it. And we'll actually push a new release. Whenever we build or push a release, it takes about 30 seconds for us to start rolling it out worldwide. So I highly encourage you to go try it. The biggest benefit, though, is you get new features early. And so one of the big features that we've been working on for VS Code over the past 3, 4, 5 months actually is this notion of multi-root workspaces. So today I've got, in your standard VS Code, you can open up one folder at a time. So I've got a folder here called Ignite 2017. It's got my slides and stuff in here. But when I'm in the insiders build, I can come in here and I can say add folder to workspace. And if I do that, I can come down and we have our little sample app here. Where is it? Sticker app. And once we open that up, it'll actually add it to the workspace. So now what's coming, when you can get access to in the insiders build today, is the ability to have multiple top-level nodes inside the environment, so you don't have to open up for each one. So if you've got a collection of folders that you work on, for example, I have the VS Code repository, the VS Code Docker extension, I can have all those open together and search across them and do all sorts of cool things from that perspective. So that's one of the great things that you get from being in the insiders. The other cool setup trick is if you want to add on Mac or on Linux, you want to add code to your path, all you have to do is come in here and type in path. You say shell command install code insiders command on the path. And so once you do that, then you can go to the terminal, go into the whatever folder you're at, do code dot boom, and it'll open it up right on that folder. So that's some of the cool things about setup that you can do. So again, going the insiders release. So the second thing I want to talk about is customization. And yesterday when I did this, of course, everybody wants to first look at color themes. And we have a number of color themes that are built into the tool, and as you bring up the preferences and you look at them and cycle through them, you can see all the different color themes. I installed the hot dog stand one yesterday, which is pretty ugly. And then I installed another one, which was blue, and then somebody tweeted as a result of that talk that I really missed the blue screen of death on Macs. So we're going to go and install a different theme, so I can come down here to the bottom of the list, install additional color themes, and what that'll do is open up the extension viewer with a search query. There's actually like a mini language inside the extension viewer, so we're searching for themes here, and one that I found earlier, which was a little bit fun, Dracula. So we can go and click on that, and you see what the theme looks like. Click on install. That'll just download the basically the theme, reload, and then we come back to themes. Dracula should be in here. There it is. There's Dracula. So now we'll set our theme to be Dracula, which is it's not too bad. It's better than the red hot dog theme. So that's why I can set the environment up as a whole. But if I want to customize things, there's actually a ton of settings that you can go and use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press, oh, what's going on there? Command, comma, and on the Mac, everything is usually command something. On Windows, it then becomes control something. On Linux, it's shift elbow control something to make that come up. So I've got a set of settings in here. It's a few interesting ones. Update channel none. This is so that my daily build of Insiders does not automatically update for me while I'm in the middle of a session. That's not very cool. Everything I do is saved automatically after a delay of about a second. So unless you're running some sort of watcher task in the background on every file saved, this is cool. You don't have to think about it anymore. Lots of cool settings in here, but because of the time, what I want to do is focus on a couple of things in here. One of them is the fact that even though I set a theme, I can come in here and actually override a theme on an element by element basis inside VS Code. So if I come in here and under Workbench color customizations and press Control Space, I'm going to get an IntelliSense list of every element inside VS Code that I can go and customize and set up a different color for. And so this is kind of interesting, but what I really think is cool is if we take this and we get rid of it from here, I'm actually working my user settings, and the user settings are global to my installation. They're global to me. There's also the notion of workspace settings, because we're now in a multi-root workspace, so it's a settings for just the Ignite 2017 sticker app workspace, but there's also settings on a per folder basis or per workspace basis. So if I go into the sticker app settings file, you'll notice down here in the folder it created a settings.json, and I can paste this in here, right? And now what I'm doing is I'm saying, hey, for this particular folder, I want this setting or this customization to be in effect. Now, you would expect, hey, the environment would change colors, but it didn't. And the reason is, and we show you a little bubble here, and this is because we're in multi-root workspaces. Multi-root workspaces, because there's a nesting of settings, you can only sort of pick up some of them at the root. And so this says, hey, you know what, in this mode, you're not going to get this setting. So we give you a nice experience for that. But what you can do then is come over here, and there's an extension for this. You say reopen the workbench here, and we'll open up a new, no, I don't need to save that, don't save. We'll open up a new instance of VS Code, which is just on that sticker app folder, which is basically how it works today. And you can see that those settings that I've taken or put into my folder settings basically are overridden and just exist for that instance. And why this is interesting, I think, is that if you're working in multiple instances, and sometimes it can get confusing. So what you can do is you can customize one for one folder and one for another folder, give it a different title bar or a different status bar, and then you can quickly sort of have a visual indicator of what's actually being, what you're using at that time. So that's how you can kind of go and customize the environment. From a key bindings perspective, this is the next thing I want to talk about. The most simple thing that I can show you from a trick is keyboard shortcut reference underneath the help menu. And this is going to take you up to the web where you have an actual printed PDF or a printable PDF that you can print out and paste on your wall. And depending on what version of what platform you're on, you'll get a Mac version or a Windows version. This is the Mac versions. We can come in here and say Linux, and then there's one for each platform that's out there. So that's pretty cool that you can go and print that out. Now, of course, we have this key bindings experience inside the tool, the keyboard shortcuts. And it comes up basically with something, it's like an editor and a search tool all combined into one, so I can see everything that's under like F8, I can see everything that is bound in that space. If I want to go and make a key binding, I can just click on it, or I can change it. So if I go to next error warning, I can click on it, I can say, hey, you know what, I want that to be F9 instead, and that will reset the key binding. But one of the things that I really want to do is, like from an editor perspective, if you want to go and understand what's out there or change it, you come in here. If you really want to get underneath the covers, you can click on this link. It says show keybindings.json. And on the left-hand side, what you actually see is the full set of key bindings that are defined for, sorry about that, that are defined for your environment. And it's a lot of stuff, but one cool thing that you can do is come in here and say Shift-Command-O, and that'll actually bring up an outline of the entire file. So if you want to go search for something and see what, Control plus Command plus left or right do, and it'll navigate you into the file in that exact place. And then if you want to override it, you can copy and paste it, move it over into the right-hand side. And keybindings.json is at user level, and that's where all of the overrides or custom key bindings that you have are put into that file. So a couple interesting key bindings that I want to show you since we're here. Let me just open up a couple of files. Docker file and a gulp file. Somebody asked this yesterday at the booth, and I thought it was cool because I didn't know how to do it off the top of my head. But you can have multiple files open at the same time, side by side, and I can come over here and I can drag and drop over to the right and split it and put it over there. But what's more interesting is I don't want to have to go to the mouse. I can just hold down the Control key, the Command key, the left arrow, and it'll jump it out or put it back into the well. If I press the Control key in here, it'll 1, 2, or 3, it'll move through the tabs that are in there. If we move one of these files out, I can press the Command key. 1 will bring me to that well, 2 will bring me to the other well. So just with a couple of quick keyboard commands, you can move fairly quickly through the environment. But what you can do is go back to keybindings.json, go back to the editor, search through there, and there's a ton of cool key bindings that you can use. All right, next thing I want to do is move on to editing. So I'm going to go in here and open up a file. Let's see, Command P, which is the command palette, and we're going to go to index.js. So this is a standard JavaScript, React, Mongo application. And one of the things that's interesting here is that, I don't know if everybody knows this, but we actually use TypeScript, the TypeScript compiler, as the language server to power the development experience for JavaScript. And the reason is that TypeScript can infer quite a bit about JavaScript just without having to do anything. In fact, if I come here and I hover over app, you can see that it's a constant instance of type express. And that's because the TypeScript compiler can go and figure that out for me. And it's cool because, well, JavaScript's cool because I can do just about anything and it just sort of works. But what I can do is I can go in here and I can actually turn on the TypeScript compiler for this file. I can just say, hey, you know what? TS check. This says to TypeScript or the compiler, start to do some type checking on this file. So if I come in here and I change one of these variables that don't exist, now all of a sudden I start to get errors and I can press the F8 key and start to cycle through there. But what is also cool if you come in here and you say something like var message equals hello, and I say message equals 10, I'm going to get an error on message because it's going to say that it's not assignable to a type of string. And that's because we told the TypeScript compiler to come on in and start validating my app. In fact, there's a way to do this for your entire workspace through a file called the jsconfig.json. It gets a little bit noisy at first, so I kind of recommend doing it one file at a time when you get a chance. Now, these other warnings that are coming up are actually from ESLint. So ESLint is an extension which will sort of validate the style in a lot of cases and some syntactic problems for your app in here. So there's a great extension for that. The thing that I really wanted to show you, which is pretty cool, and the reason I talked about TypeScript at first is because TypeScript also has a set of built-in refactorings, and it's starting to grow more and more of those, and then they surface into JavaScript as well as if you're doing TypeScript. So I've highlighted a set of lines here. I can click on this light bulb that pops up and extract that function into a global scope. Once it does that, it actually creates a new function, but it puts the function into the rename mode, right? So new function is the best thing it could come up with. I think it was like set up roots. When I do that, then I've got this function. If I hold the Alt key down and click on that, I'll actually navigate down to where that function has been extracted and created for me. So that's some of the cool things that you can do in JavaScript. The other thing I talked about earlier was Emmet. So I'm going to come in here and do, let's see, index.html. So if anybody is familiar with Emmet, so I got one guy who's familiar with Emmet. Quick, run over here. I'm just going to show you, it is this magical template editing experience. And so if I come in here and I press or insert an exclamation point, what happens is the IntelliSense comes up, and on the right-hand side, you actually get a preview of what's going to be generated in the file. And what's your name?
Sam.
Sam, nice to meet you, Sam. Sam is apparently a Emmet expert. So once I take this expansion, I press tab, it'll actually insert it all in for me, and I can tab through it. It's just basically a snippet. And Sam, now I want you to show everybody what else you can do with Emmet. Quick, 3 cool things. What do you got?
I don't know.
Exactly. All right. That's it. You were the expert. Okay. Let's slow it down and do it one more time. So let's say that I want to come in here and I want to put in a div, right? And I press div, and you can see over on the right-hand side, there's actually, thanks, Sam. There's actually a preview of what you're actually going to get. So if I say div greater than, and I say, well, inside that div, I'm going to put a paragraph. You can see the expansion on the right. But if I want 3 paragraphs, I can do that. And then with each one of those paragraphs, I can have an unordered list. And inside each unordered list, I want to have a list item of 5. And you get the whole preview on the right-hand side, and you press return. It'll insert it right into the file. And then you can just basically tab through all of the places where you then want to go and start to write your code. Now, Emmet expansions will work in HTML files, CSS files, and you can set it up to work in other files like JavaScript. So if you're creating like React components or things like that, where you've got embedded HTML inside JavaScript, you can use it in there as well. So it's a very cool and handy shortcut. All right, so that's that. And debugging. So debugging is the next thing I want to go through. So I said this application is a pretty simple Mongo React application. What I'm going to do is come in here in my app. I'm just going to press F5. We're going to start the server up here on port 3000. We'll browse to localhost just so we can see that the app is actually running. And so it's this hypothetical sticker app where you could go online and order cool stickers for all your favorite technologies. But what I can do here is, so the server is running. Of course, while I'm debugging, I could come over here to like my server roots, put a breakpoint on one of the roots, and if I press refresh on this page, boom, we break into the root, which is very cool. And of course, everything that you expect, I can step over and inspect variables. I bring up the debug view, I can see the call stack and watch windows, and I have a REPL down here in the debug console, so I can say x equals 10, and then I could evaluate it. I could say console.log x, and it'll print that out, and so I really have this very rich debugging experience. But one of the things that's interesting about this, we'll just press play and keep on going. One of the things that's interesting about this, if I come in here and I go and modify some client code, let me find it. Actually, I've got a shortcut set up, demo. Demo. Oh, sorry. If I come in here and what I want to do, this is the CSS that actually controls the color of all of these tags up here, which are green. I want to go and change those, right, on the client side. And so here's the background color. If I hover over it, one of the things we've added just recently is a color picker, and I like blue. So we'll change that to be blue, and we'll do the border color. We'll make it a bluish color as well. All right, so I made this change. I've got autosave on. If I press refresh here or restart the debugger, the server will restart. And if I refresh the page, we still have green stickers. And the problem is that I didn't rebuild the client side, right? So if I come in here and there's a gulp task, I say gulp build, which will rebuild the client side. It'll take a second to do this, which is fairly quick actually. And then I go and restart the server and browse to the page again. Now I have blue tags. So that's cool, I can go and do that, but it's kind of a manual process. I would like to actually automate this entire process during the debug cycle. So what I can do is come into the command palette again, and I can type in task. And if I press space after task, what's going to happen is VS Code will go and interrogate my entire gulp file and figure out what all the tasks are there and give me a quick, easy access to it. So you can see here the gulp build task is something that I could run from here, and it'll ask me if it wants to scan the output, and there it'll run it for me. So that's nice. It's a quicker way to get at it. But I can take this another step further. If I go to gulp build and hover over it with the mouse, you can see there's a gear on the right-hand side. And when I click on that gear, what will happen is it's going to create a file called task.json. And task.json lets me define or configure how I want the tool to run another set of tasks. And what's interesting about this to me is that VS Code being an editor with great editing and debugging built in, there's a whole tool chain that you basically use around your editor. And tasks are the way that you can link the tool to the rest of your tools, the rest of your tool chain. So what we're saying here is part of my tool chain is actually gulp. And I'm not configuring the tool or forcing you to go down to gulp. You can use your same all right, I'm getting the 5-minute warning. So I can come in here and I can hook up Gulp to the rest of my tool chain. So what I'm going to do is come in here and I'm going to do a couple things to this task. I'm going to give it an identifier. I'm going to say this is my Gulp build task. Right? And once I do that, what I can do is come over to my launch.json, which is where I've defined how to set up and run this application. I can come in here and say, all right, there's a pre-launch task. Run this thing before you start debugging. I'm going to say it's the Gulp build task. Right? And now when I press F5, watch what will happen. The build will get kicked off, and then the server will start, and then we'll be able to browse to the site, and we'll see any updates to the application. We didn't change any colors here, but at least you can see this is how you can connect your Gulp task, your external task, to your debug tasks. I have 5. No 5? Okay, so I'm like done completely? Oh, so I thought that was a 5-minute warning. Oh no. Okay, can I do one more thing? Just one more thing. It's really cool. This is the coolest thing ever. All right, this is the fun way to land on this one. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, I'm going to do one more thing. And it is, I'm going to go and install a very cool extension. It is called Power Mode. When I search for Power Mode, I can install this extension. It'll only take 1 second before he kicks me off the stage. Power Mode, yes. Reload the environment. And that will install that extension for me. And now when I come in here, I've got a file called thankyou.markdown. And let me make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. And I'm just going to say thank you. Oh no, I need to do one other thing, is I need to enable Power Mode. Power Mode enabled. It's true. And once I do that, I can come in here and I can say, thank you very much for attending. Please fill out your evals. All right, that's it. 20 minutes. There's not a lot. There's so much stuff to show you in VS Code. Come by the booth. We can do all sorts of demos. Thank you very much.